you, by the way?
I'm doing good, man. It really is an honor to have you on. I've been a big fan of yours since I was a teenager, so it's really great to have you on the show, man.
Well, that's very kind of you. I appreciate it. Where are you?
I am in Ohio, which I believe is where you were born.
Yeah, what part?
Up by the like Akron, Cleveland area. I know you're from Cincinnati, right?
Correct. Yeah, but I remember playing Akron a bunch. I remember those days, you know.
That was probably it was certainly quite a while before my time, but probably you probably remember the Akron Agora. I would
Please.
imagine. Yeah, yeah.
I think they called them like ballrooms or something, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
the Agora Ballroom and yeah, which they have still now, but not they got rid of the one in Akron. They have one up in Cleveland now.
yeah, I think we did those gigs opening for like Meatloaf the first time.
Oh wow.
I know. And then we came back. I think you know, in the early days in seven, you know, this is way back when we rode to gigs on horseback, you know. So it's
Well, you probably remember. I'm sure you guys got some early airplay on WMMS and in Cleveland back in the day. They helped break a lot of bands early on.
oh yeah, Ohio. Those areas were really good to us, and you know that was back when you know you'd put out a record, and if you didn't have a pocket, you know, like if somebody didn't play you, you didn't have a gig. You know, it was like, I mean, this is all pre MTV, pre internet. You know, like the only way any place was ever made aware of you was if they played a single or if they played a couple songs, and word of mouth. You know, you'd show up and there'd be people that were into it, you know, but it was all, well, it's weird because it's not unlike it is now.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, let's talk your new band, Speaker Wars, because the debut self-titled album is coming out on May 30th, and it's got to feel good being back in a band after all these years, right? Because this is your first band since leaving Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, which was what, 30 years ago now or something.
That's a long time ago. Yeah, I hadn't had it was really cool because the guys that I'm working with now, you know, John Davis and he knew most of the guys that are in the Speaker Wars come from his posse. They're from his cartel. And John and I were just writing, and I thought I was writing for John's album. You know, like I figured, well, I'm just writing songs, you know, that's what I do. And John was the one who just kept bugging me during COVID, like, man, you ain't got a hair, man, unless you know, get behind a kid and start playing. And so he's the reason why it kind of came together. And but does feel good. If it's nice to have my old job back.
Well, what got you to come out of band retirement? Because I'd have to imagine that in the last 30 years, I mean, surely this is not your first offer that you've gotten to join a band, right? There's definitely been others over the years, I would guess.
This was the most interesting, really, because it was started so organically with the songs. Like I was writing the songs with John, not for any purpose. I mean, I really didn't have you know, I wasn't thinking, oh man, I can't wait to go play them. I was thinking more, let's just write good songs that John wants to sing. And so what made the difference was when he said, let's start a band, I felt that I'd have some DNA and ownership of the music. Like I wasn't just playing someone else's songs. I mean, I didn't, you know, joining a band it's a big deal. And if you're not neck deep in the love of it, it can start to feel like you're kind of like just working, you know?
Sure.
So this was sort of like seeing how far we could push the noise we were enjoying making. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it felt like I was more part of it this time.
I have to imagine that some of this album was done in the room that you're speaking to me in. It looks like you're in your home studio.
Yeah, a lot of this was brought to you by COVID, which was a lot of what happened artistically to a lot of people. I mean, I'm not unique. You know, when COVID hit, you know, about 6 months in, we all went, well, we either just die and dry up or we get to work. And the new way of working was file sharing, and so many people had studios, and, you know, and I had become rather reliant on engineers and people that, you know, were really good at this stuff. But during COVID, man, we all had to roll up our sleeves and figure out how to do this. So a lot of the Speaker Wars album was made during COVID on the fly, very ghetto, scrappy, you know, just get down and do it, man. You know, it's not like we had a budget and went into Sound City and said, let's go make an album. It was more like I felt like I was on an equal playing field with a young artist. I was, you know, that felt good. Like it's like, oh yeah, right. I'm back in the gym. This is good. All right, cool. You know?
Well, and obviously, you know, going back to the old Heartbreakers albums, I mean, your vocals, you're a key part of a lot of the harmonies on those songs. And on this upcoming Speaker Wars album, you're singing lead. It's 3 different songs that you're doing the vocals on, right?
Yeah, it's an acquired taste, man. Let's be honest.
Well, but I think, you know, there's plenty of people. I mean, I've seen a million threads online about it and everything, you know, you know, you are a key part beyond drumming. You know, your voice was a key part of that sound. So it is good to, you know, I'm sure some of that will be channeled on these Speaker Wars songs.
Well, I love singing harmonies. I mean, I've always loved that. And Jon is you know, singing harmony is it's a really cool thing because you got to figure out the DNA of your singer. Like, you know, with Tom, it was very specific. I mean, this guy had a lane, man. When Tom sang, it was like nobody else. So in order to blend with him, you had to really like watch his face. You had to breathe when he breathed. You know, it's a full body contact sport to sing good harmony with a stylist. And Jon, you know, I'm just learning. I mean, this is like baby's first steps, this record. You know, it's really cool. I'm looking, hopefully we get to make more because it's just getting better. Like we're actually, you know, it's getting better every time we work now, you know.
Are there plans to take this out on the road?
We'd love to. It's a, you know, let me see, how can I put this delicately and honestly? It requires, it's a financial, you know, to take 6 guys on the road.
Yeah.
I think you know where we're going here.
Of course.
It's a big deal. And you can't do it without an audience. And I'm grateful to you and to your audience that's listening now. Hey, if you like it, support us. We'd love to come play, you know, but it's very difficult. You know, requires quite a commitment to get on the road.
When you, it was, what was it, 2022, I believe, you toured with Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs filling in for his drummer. Did that sort of reignite your, you know, your passion to get back out on the road and go out on tour again?
It certainly didn't hurt. I mean, I had been playing more and more drums on my own demos at home. You know what I mean? Like, so I was playing, I really put them down for a long time. I really didn't touch the drums for quite a long time. And then it was probably, you know, in the recent times that, you know, when you're recording at home, you go, hey, we need a drummer. Oh shit, I can do that. You know, like I'm rated. So I was stumbling, getting back into the drums again. And my buddy, Greg Bissonette, who I don't know if you're aware of, is fantastic drummer.
Yeah.
And he's been my friend for years. And he sort of coaxed me back into it, and also had a drum set built for me by this company, Dixon. I think you can see over my shoulder.
Yeah.
And fantastic, because I'd been playing old drums my whole, you know, I hadn't had a new drum set you know, since when I can't remember. So Greg reignited it by saying, look, I'm going to design you a kit. Dixon will build it. And then when I put them up, I went, oh my God, these things sound great. So I started recording them. And then that was right around the time Mike called and said, Matt is taking a break. And would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, man, let's go out and play. And Mike is he's a brother, you know, I mean, you know, it's not difficult to find a bond with a guy you kind of grew up with, you know.
Sure,
that's a fairly simple place to, but it was interesting learning Matlog's charts because he's a great drummer. And obviously proven by playing with AC/DC now.
Oh, is that who it is now? Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Wow. I did not realize that.
Yeah, Matt's a badass. And so it wasn't without some trepidation that when Mike said, like, would you like to play with the Knobs? I'm thinking, you know, well, the guy you just had wasn't like a slouch, was he? And having to learn those charts, because I've never played anything but me, like I've always just played what I play. So that was a learning curve for me as well. And yeah, Mike was great. And Mike's audience was really kind to me. I didn't feel like it felt like I was being invited back into a living room that was really nice. And Mike was lovely, and so yeah, all that, his crew was great. I mean, I'm like a joke, but it does take a village to get a rock and roll band to work. It's it's not one singular effort. It requires great crew, it requires cool managers. It's a big, there's got to be a lot of goodwill before this thing will fly,
Well, perhaps at some point we'll get a Dirty Knobs and Speaker Wars tour, huh? That would be great.
I wouldn't bug me. I'd love to put Benmont in there too.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Those guys are extraordinarily talented people. And there's no accident that Ben Tench is on pretty much every great record in the last 40 years, and he's the most in-demand guy. He's that good. And Mike Campbell's the same way. He's there. I was very fortunate to be in all those orbits and be in great rooms.
One thing I was curious about is, being a part of the Heartbreakers for so long, and it turned into such a big thing, and you're drumming in that band, and then after that, you have a career that's more focused on songwriting and production, which I knew that you had written, that you were doing some songwriting. I did not realize until we got this set up. I was looking at your credits. It's like, holy shit, this dude's wrote like a million fucking songs. But when you're kind of on both sides of the coin, in the band and then a more behind the scenes role later on, and then you end up kind of doing a full 360 and you're in a band again. How do you approach this new band any differently than back in the day, now given your experience in such a huge band and then also working with such huge artists on the production and writing side?
Yeah, well, it's very different. I'm a grown man. I was a boy when that thing started. Literally, I was a teenager,
Sure.
So now the stakes of the game are very different. The stakes of the game when that band started was almost, I mean, I don't mean to sound dramatic, but life or death. Like I had nothing to fall back on. I was absolutely either had to make it, that band had to make it, or I was going to end up living under a bridge, and I'm not bullshitting you. It's like we were driven to come from nowhere, and get somewhere. So now the stakes of the game are a little different, which is okay. I'm not desperate, but I love music in such a passionate way, the same way. But I have a place to live now. I have a car. It's like, you know what I mean? I have food.
Sure.
It's like, it's like, and that's the difference. And I'm older. It's like, I look at my own body and I go, holy crap, when did this happen? So you play a little differently, you sing differently. You have to try to grow old with some dignity and enjoy yourself and surround yourself with people. Fortunately, they're a little younger than me and they're tough. They're tough as a $2 steak, these guys, and they're driven. And I love that. I like the feeling of like being an outsider. It's still a very cool feeling to me. And so I don't like being lumped in with like, oh yeah, you guys are whatever. I like being in a band that's scrappy, and I have no problem with this. It's actually kind of entertaining and very grounding, and it's kind of how I live. It feels very natural to me.
I want to talk about some Heartbreaker stuff real quick because next year, as I'm sure you are aware, is the 50th anniversary of that first album, and I would have to imagine that looking back, and it's like, wow, half a century, and just what a landmark album, and obviously life-changing for you and everybody else that was a part of it. But it's got to be crazy to look back on it and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that was 50 years ago now.
Rub it in, would you? Keep going. yeah, that's mind-boggling that this stuff has endured, that that first album endured. And I think it's held up kind of well. It's very unpretentious. It doesn't require you can either love it or hate it. It's sonically, it's sort of funny to me now, like, because it's very much like a demo to me, that record. Like the drums on American Girl are literally on one fader.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Which for those in the know what I'm saying. But if you're even not in the know, that's the equivalent of saying, like, I rode in on a bicycle to get that drum track. It's like, it's so primitive. And what I love about that record, it's five guys discovering a sound so naturally. I mean, it just, from the drummer's point of view, I counted four and that's what happened. It's like, we never talked about it. We never planned anything. And I love that. And so the fact that that record is still around, that I can, that I still hear those songs, and I realize it's an out of body experience. I don't really remember the details. There's pieces that drift in and out, and I have dreams where I go, oh, wow, I forgot about that. But it is a long time, and I'm very grateful that it blows my mind.
Where does that album stand in terms of your favorites of the Heartbreakers albums that you were a part of?
Oh man, it's got to be right up there. I mean, it's your first kiss, isn't it? It's like, do you remember? It's like your first. You'll never forget your first. It's like, I mean, everything else is. And plus, it was such a great moment in a life for all of us. Like, we got to make a record. I mean, if it had ended right there, I probably would have still been incredibly proud and been the luckiest guy from Gainesville, Florida. I got to make a record. You know what I mean? That was so foreign from how I grew up. I mean, that was 50 light years away from how I grew up.
Well, I'm sure you saw the news over the weekend that David Johansen, the frontman of the New York Dolls, sadly passed away. And obviously New York Dolls innovators in the early punk scene, and that first Heartbreakers album. I mean, you guys were kind of had you guys were deemed as a punk band by some people, so a little bit of an association with that world. But were you a fan of New York Dolls, or did you have any sort of relationship with him, David, or anyone from that band?
Well, the David Johansen band was on a bill with us many, many times. We played with the David Johansen band, with Tom Petty The Heartbreakers, and they were our support act. And I loved those guys. And Frankie LaRocca was his drummer. He's passed, but he was a brother. And yeah, of course, man, we got to hang. They were hysterical. They were New York as you can imagine. I remember when we went to, what were we doing? Oh yeah, we went to play Saturday Night Live the first time, I think it's 79. And Frankie, a dear friend, the drummer, I remember he came to the hotel and he goes, "What, are you going to wear that?" I remember he looking at me and he goes, "What are you hippies from California? You got no, you got nothing?" And he took me out clothes shopping, and because he knew we were going to be making videos for like Refugee and Here Comes My Girl. And he goes like, "Man, you can't do that. And he took me out shopping, got me Beatle boots, got me the right drags, took me to all the cool the recycle places where you could buy cool stuff. And yeah, so my interface with David Johansen and Frankie and those cats is very fond. And yeah, David was a beautiful man, beautiful man. And I think there's a website up you can send money, and I think it will come in quite handy. He's a family, and I would pledge if you were a fan. I think that's the kindest thing you can do.
Yeah, and some of these. I mean, obviously, he had just recently announced that he was, he had been battling cancer for a number of years, and he fell down the stairs in November and broke his back, and just what a tragic last few years it's been. But just overall, a horrible loss.
Yeah, but let's remember how cool he was.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm still in my 20s, so I'm quite a bit of a younger guy. But when I was a teenager, I was super into, and still am into a lot of the 80s bands. And obviously, you know, New York Dolls influenced the way that all of those bands look. And so I kept hearing about David Johansen and Johnny Thunders and guys like that. And I went out and bought some CDs, and it's fucking awesome, man. I love the New York Dolls.
Look, that's authentic shit right off the street in New York, man. That's all your CBGB's era, and that's all wonderful. And you know, there was the cellar door. There were all. I'm trying to think what else. Oh man, I'm blanking on it. But they were great. New York was, you know, our New York in the '70s was total ghetto, total street. We were, you know, we were funky kids, and you know, it was great, man. You know, getting us, you know, and having those guys being from New York, they would take you to they knew where to get the right slice, they knew where to get all the cool stuff, and it was great having that cross pollination East and West Coast back then. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, what definitely a terrible loss, but. You know, back to the Heartbreakers. One thing that I heard you say that I thought was a very interesting way to put it is that when you were out of the Heartbreakers, you said that you felt that you got your last name back, because when you were in the band, you said you felt like your name was just Stan, drummer for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And then when you're out of the band, it's, you know, obviously, I mean, it's not a good feeling, but at the same time, it's like, well, at least now I kind of have my identity back a little bit.
Well, it's on you at that point. You know, your reinvention begins in that exact second. You know, like the minute you, you know, I'm very grateful I did my chunk with the band. I'm also really grateful I didn't do the last 20. And I'm so proud of those other guys that they could do that, because I couldn't do it. I just couldn't be what they wanted. I couldn't get my heart and my ass and my head into the same headspace with them. And when you're in a band, it's all or nothing, man. You know, you can't sort of halfway be in a band, you know, and make it fun for everybody. So being out of the band was this grief and release. Like of course I was really sad, because I had dedicated my life up to them, you know, literally. I mean, that was the culmination of all my dreams. And then I was relieved and released from all of that drama. And do I fit in? Am I loved? Am I liked? Am I hated? Am I doing it? It was such a release from it. And then fortunately, I literally within a couple of days, I got a call from Don Henley, who said, like, what are you doing? Let's get to work. And so yeah, I mean, I literally felt like I went from a trapeze right to the next thing in my life, which was so cool, because that was just as scary, you know, just as freaked out. I was just as freaked out.
Well, and when Don called you when you were out of the band, that was the time that he was reforming the Eagles, and so you ended up. You guys worked on some songs, and one of the songs that you wrote with him is on Hell Freezes Over, right?
That's correct. But we had a history
from his solo albums, right?
And he was just a good dude. He was my big brother, you know. That was Don. He was he seemed like he was always in my life. Once I met him and Danny Korchmeyer, they were just in my life. They were family to me. They were absolutely, I could call on them, they could call on me. Even if it wasn't work, we didn't care. It was like, hey, what are you doing? Let's go have dinner. It was like, I was really grateful for their friendship. You know, when you get mentors in your life, you know, they were so important. And yeah, but getting back to that moment in '94, I guess it was, yeah, Don said, you know, get your ass out here, bring your studio, let's get to work. And it wasn't like Don was giving me carte blanche. He was just saying, I'm giving you a shot. Like, he would crack the door, and if you could get your ass in there, he would encourage you. And that's huge, man. People don't realize how huge that is, to have a gatekeeper, you know, that'll say, give it a shot, man. Give it a shot.
Well, and I'm sure, you know, doing all that writing, or before all that on his solo stuff, and then the Eagles, and from there, I mean, I'm sure that's what led to a lot of the other songwriting and that you've done over the years, and the career that you've been able to turn that into with Tim McGraw and all sorts of other stuff that you've written for.
Well, certainly being validated by some of the best in the business.
It's got to be a good
That's
feeling.
always,
Of course.
that don't hurt. That's and like I said, I've said before, that's invitation only. You can't petition people of that caliber to say, would you endorse me? You'll be laughed out of the room.
Of course.
I mean? It's like, but when they do it quietly over time, they're not even publicly endorsing. They're privately saying, I like that. Don't ever do that. Yeah. When they're sharing their process, that's the most generous thing creative people can do with each other, is really share, let their guard down. And I've been really fortunate. Several people have done that for me. And right at the top would be Don and Danny, just saying, get your butt in here and get to work.
Well, a couple of last things I want to ask you before we wrap this up. One last thing on the Heartbreakers, if you're okay to answer this question. I'm sure it's not the world's greatest topic, but there was a quote from you that I read in an interview that I was curious about, and I think everybody is aware of the I guess awkward, tense situation, when you were out of the band and that you guys weren't really in touch, and at the Rock Hall induction, I know you and Tom did not talk, but you did an interview with Rolling Stone a few years ago. I think it was when you were doing the tour with Mike, and you were talking about learning that Tom Petty had passed away. And your quote, I guess I was very curious about some elaboration on, if you don't mind. Your quote was, "I was on my fucking knees staring at the sky. I didn't know whether to say thank you or fuck you. I only knew I was grateful to have had the experience of having all those men in my life."
Seems to speak for itself.
I mean, yeah, no, go ahead.
Well, I am very grateful, and I loved Tom. There's no question. I truly did love him. Doesn't mean that we got along all the time, but in the early years, we really did well together. I mean, that was a hell of a thing. If you ever saw that band live, I would venture to say that was one of the better live bands you'll ever see. And that was because of what we did for each other, me included, and obviously Tom. The bitterness of that would be, why did you punch out? Like, I mean, I didn't know all the details of why Tom left, but it was like, God damn it, man, don't do that. I don't like, I hate it when I lose people in my life. I hate it. I just fucking hate it. I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen to me. It's going to happen to you. Doesn't mean I like it. And, when Howie died, I was this very similar. I kind of like it knocked me. It just knocks you back, because these are guys that are, they've been in your life, your whole life, Tom. And I guess maybe there was a piece of me that never got to sit in a room with him and tell him how much I love him and make jokes again, so there was a piece of that and I dream about it. I dream where we have dinner now, and I have the conversations now in dream world, and we laugh and it's fun. But I did at the Hall of Fame get to tell him how much respect I had for him, and he did tell me his last words to me were, I heard you, and that was the last thing he said to me, which is like, that's cool,
Yeah, at least and a closure, I guess, in some sort of in some capacity,
in some way. I mean, we all, had a relationship. They were very, I had a band relationship and I had individual relationships with people. Sometimes they were at odds. And look, are you in a band?
I am not. I was when I was a teenager, but none of them were ever very good.
Well, it's funny. Anybody who's been in a band of any that's, had to give in their life to a portion of their life to being in a band knows there's two words and it covers it completely. Band shit.
Of course, absolutely.
Like, like what happened? It's band shit. And it's like, that's all you got to say. It's like anybody worth their salt. I mean, I would venture to say from the Beatles to anybody would probably go like, there's some version of that. It's like, band shit. It's like, and it comes and goes. And I feel very fortunate that I got to make some really good music with some really fine fellas. And I really mean that. It's like, I ain't shitting you. That ain't going to happen again. But I love being in a band, and we'll try to make our own joyful noise,
Well, and the music that you've made is timeless, and it's really everybody is a fan of that stuff. I've known people that are hardcore into hip hop and rap, and they love Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And I've known people that are super into extreme metal, but they love the Heartbreakers. So it's an all-encompassing thing. But I know we're running out of time, but the one last thing I wanted to ask you about, I thought was very interesting. I came across a video on YouTube that you had sold, I guess, all of your gold and platinum records, and this I forget what it was. It was some drum thing up in Seattle, I think. They were like auctioning them off or whatever. But why the decision to was it all like 100% of your gold and platinum records? You don't have any anymore?
I don't think I do. I mean, I had a it's like all musicians. I have a storage locker that feels like it was Fibber McGee's closet. You walk in there, and you just wouldn't. And one day I walked in and I went, all this stuff, I'm never going to put it up. I'm not that guy. I've never put gold records up. It just seems kind of icky to me. I'm just, and then I was talking, and this Don Bennett, I think he's still got quite a few to sell, but there's people that really need that. They can use that money, basically, is in a nutshell.
Sure.
It's not important to me. I'm not gonna miss a meal. I'm good. But there's a lot of people, and in my own life, there's my friends that can use that. And some of my old lamps and old stuff, it's like my closet can be turned into some really cool things for other people. And I think they're still cool to look at, but
of course.
But like I said, I been there, done it, and it's worked out really well. A couple of them have gotten turned into things that people can really use, and that makes me really happy. It just makes me really happy.
How did you feel when you? I would imagine the first one you ever got was probably from the first Heartbreakers album. How did you feel? Were you like ecstatic when you finally got one, or were you always just kind of like, whatever?
Well, the first one we got was probably from England. The first album didn't go gold, for forever. It's like the second album was the first record that we got a gold record. An actual RIAA, the ones that you saw, like The Who got one of these,
Right,
so
right.
I felt like, I'm sure I put that one up in my apartment. I'm sure I put it up, because it was like, that was just cool. Like, not everybody has one of these. After a point, I didn't even open them up. You'd see the box, and you just go like, it's a box, and you go like, and the office would say, double platinum Canadian or blah, 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 or blah. And it's like, I just realized like the storage locker is just full of stuff. And also the certain age in life, I guess, okay, you can't relate, but when my parents passed and you went like, I don't really want their old stuff. I want them,
Yeah.
I don't really want, and like when I realized like when I'm gone, somebody's going to walk in the storage and I go, what are you going to do with all this shit? It's like,
Right. It almost leaves more work for people when you go and you leave people all your shit. It's like, well, I don't know what the fuck to do with it.
No, man, I'm got that very Japanese theory. If I haven't used it in 6 months, I either take it to the curb and give it away, throw it away, sell it and turn it into something else. And it's like, to me, the only things, the only valuable things in my life are breathing, really, you know?
Of course.
And everything else is just stuff, and I love it. I have some really cool stuff, but if I'm not using it, someone else should be using it, you know? Or let's just get rid of it, because like I said, when I'm gone, it's just going to be some crap. Somebody's going to have to sort through and go, Jesus, Uncle Stan, what was he doing with this shit? You know, it's like, it's like giving figurines, you know, like I didn't want my grandmother's figurines. I really didn't, you know.
No, I hear you 100%. Well, the debut album from the Speaker Wars comes out on May 30th. Stan, thank you so much for coming on. Anything else you want to get in as we wrap this one up?
Well, I want to thank you, and I want to thank your listeners, and I would like to encourage them to get our asses out on the road. And the only way that's going to happen is if you guys find something in here you like, and let's try to create some energy behind this, because this is, I really appreciate it. That's what I really want to add. Thank you.
No, well, thank you. And the album really is great. I've heard it maybe 3-4 times the whole way through now. I've listened to it, and it's great. I'm excited for I've seen the video for the single that's out now, and they sent me over the album, and it's great. So looking forward to the release, and really hope to see you out on the road. And again, I can't thank you enough for taking some time, and would love to have you back on maybe when we have some more time. And there's obviously, you've got such a storied career, so I'd love to deep dive into it at some point.
Sure. Well, I think the next video comes out probably later this month. I think they're putting out three vids, and then the record will come out. So help me keep it rolling, man. I'll talk to you next time. If you see the video and you like it, let me know.
Yeah, you got it, man. Well, Stan, thank you so much. Appreciate it, and all the best.
All right, man. Be careful up there. Stay warm.